Today we're going to talk about metadata and workflow. But before kind of diving into that, I want to back up a little bit and touch a little on what Liz was talking about this morning. How many of us in this room got into publishing so that we could send emails back and forth to production people and finance people and Amazon and Kobo making corrections on the metadata? Yeah. Because that's such a passion, right? I think that that we came into this business for reasons that are very different from that. Last year at Tools of Change in New York City, Margaret Atwood gave us some great explanations about publishing, none of which were ordering paper from mills and binding pages together. She pointed out that there are a lot of different ways to publish. So basically, as publishers, we get a message out. This message could be a lot of things. And if the stars align, we manage to make a living actually believing in the message that we're paid to get out. But what's important to this particular conversation is the spreading of that message. That's what we do. We spread the word. That's the business we're in. We're professional word spreaders. However, we want to preach the word not to the choir. And as we know, Twitter is an echo chamber, and it's a very finite world. They've heard it all before. So we want to be spreading the word to people who are hungry to hear it. We're talking to everybody, people all over the globe, in all professions, of all ages. Our mission, our purpose, is to reach everybody in the world. And this is hard, but it's what we've been tasked with just by being in this industry. And so I'm going to tell you how to do it, because I have all the secrets. The first one is, you know more than you think you do. How many people in here are editors? Okay, if you could stand up for 1 minute, please. I'm going to pick on you. What do you know about a book when you acquire it?
What it's about, how it fits into, I worked at the University Press, how it fits into the field that it's part of.
The author, the name of the author? You generally know that too? Yeah. Sometimes there's a title, sometimes there's not. So you have information about the book. That's metadata. And that's very important. It's not just what you know, though, it's when you know it. So you may not know the title when you acquire the book, but when it's about to be published, it suddenly has a title, right? So the information changes over the course of the acquisitions process. Yes. The focus of the book could shift. You could have a different set of subjects that you attach to it eventually. And this is all critical information for readers to know, right? I mean, presumably. Cool, thank you. Any managing editors in the house? I'm coming after you, yes. Chances are, when you are working with a book, what do you feel you know when a book comes across your desk?
Generally, what it's about, who the author is, what they previously published, who the audience is.
Mm-hmm. The ISBN?
Not at the beginning.
Right, but over time, yeah. The formats the book's going to be published in, the date of publication, we hope, yeah. The prices of the different editions, all of that is highly volatile information. It changes a lot over the cycle of publishing, but it's critical for readers and the supply chain to understand, to know. You may know that there will be 4 formats when you create the first schedule, and there could be 5, 6, 7 down the road, because you're sending to new vendors who like their files in a proprietary way. If you're a marketer, I'm not even going to call on any marketers because we all know that metadata is a form of marketing. You know how the book is supposed to be sold, what categories and keywords are appropriate, all that good SEO stuff. And this too could change depending on editorial influence or production needs or what have you. So yeah, it's all metadata. And increasingly, as we leave the physical realm during this period of digital upheaval, metadata for books is obviously more critical than it ever has been before. My colleague, Brian O'Leary, he's an independent consultant. He has a talk called Context First that he delivers to conferences all over the world. And he points out that publishers, when they liberate their content from its containers, metadata is pretty much the only indication that the content exists, and definitely the only indication as to where it can be found. So everybody in this room has a hand in that. Whether you're creating metadata, receiving metadata, everybody has a hand in that. I like to call it metadata as a functional map. In each step of the publishing process, information about the book gets created, and it doesn't always get used. Sometimes it gets forgotten. Sometimes it gets stashed away on an intern's hard drive. And after you've fired him, it's never seen again. Your communication with the people who are hungry for the word you're spreading should not be trusted to this guy. The information is much too valuable, and it's changing way too fast. It helps to keep in mind that when you have metadata in a single system that everyone has access to, with varying permissions, of course, when you fire your drunk intern, you can still get to the metadata that you've asked him to enter and correct it or enhance it or change it. You know exactly which titles are in your spring list because there are not 6 spreadsheets floating around with different ISBNs on them. My boss, Fran Chulin, calls this a company's single source of truth. Another firebrander, Rob Stevens, calls it one database to rule them all. He's a Tolkien fan. So let's look at this functional map again. And notice how each division of the publishing house has something to say about a book. Everyone participates. Everyone's accountable to everyone else. If production screws up a piece of information, editorial is going to know. And so is acquisition, and so is marketing, because those folks are going into the same database to put in their information and to use what's already been laid down. By centralizing the product database into a single hub, each function across the publishing house can do their work, and in the process, they're vetting the metadata that's already been put into the system, because they have to use it to do their work. The metadata becomes clean as the book moves through its development cycle, because it's exposed to so many people whose jobs are so very different, all of whom are using the metadata in different ways. But all of those people are working towards the same goal, getting the word out about the book. In some cases, just to one another, just so that they can complete their tasks. But ultimately, there's the greater purpose of getting the word out to the reader. And this gets accomplished as a byproduct of all this communication to a central hub. It's the hive mind at work. Or if you have a more sinister point of view. So when I say metadata is not a thing, what am I talking about? As metadata takes off as a subject in itself, I've started thinking about metadata and communication in terms of audiences. Just as I'm gearing this talk to a particular audience and swapping out some slides to reflect Canadian-based businesses versus US-based businesses, how I'm communicating and even what I'm communicating is different for this audience than it was the time that I gave a version of this at NISO's ebook conference, or different from the phone conversations I have every day with my clients. Communication among anyone has to take audience into account. So for the metadata you're entering or sending out, who's the audience? Who are you sharing this information with? What works for you and your colleagues and your trading partners? So we go back to this single source of truth. Editors are trying to communicate one set of information. Production has another whole set of priorities to worry about. There's metadata that, while very valuable internally, publishers absolutely don't want to leave the house. Budgets, sales figures, things like that. And metadata that publishers very much want to get out the door, like good reviews. As you're communicating, as you're part of the hive mind, you have to think about who's receiving that communication. Do they really need it? Are they missing something they should probably have, something that would help spread the word about the book in a helpful way? Carton quantity, as boring as it is a critical data point that helps to spread the word about your books to your distributors. Case pack indicators, things like that. These are huge. It helps to put yourself in the shoes of the people you want to communicate with. You have to speak their language. For example, Amazon's not putting up inventory information on its website for customers. They're putting up a notice of availability. It's in stock, it's out of stock. But they're not putting up actual stock numbers, even though they receive that information from publishers and distributors. That's information strictly for order management, for the back end. Nor do they put up the price at which they acquired a book. Again, that's not the reader's business. That's not what they want to communicate to the outside world. But it is the sort of information that gets communicated between Amazon and publishers and distributors all the time. So readers require different information from booksellers, which require different information from distributors, which require different information from libraries. So metadata is not this crystallized thing, an object like a piece of glass. It's much more fluid than that, like particles of sand that presumably make up the glass. It's a somewhat unruly form of communication. Having a metadata manager or a metadata czar at your publishing house to manage the object that is metadata is great in theory, but given all the different points of communication along the publishing chain, it's tough to put one person in charge of what's basically a logistical nightmare. So now we're going to take a vacation. We're going to the beach. I grew up near the beaches in southern Delaware, and in the summer, every Sunday after church without fail, we got hauled off to the beach to dig, to swim, to have dinner on the sand, and we would get back to the house completely covered in sand. And it was the 1970s, so of course Mom was in charge of getting rid of all the sand, cleaning the house. She was the sand manager. But of course, the sand was everywhere. And it wasn't until we were older and could each manage our own sand that the house managed to stay reasonably clean on Sunday nights. So, with this bit of wisdom, I would argue that instead of having a sand manager, each function should be in charge of what it's communicating, to who it's communicating it, and how it gets communicated. I'm arguing that instead of a single metadata guru, that responsibility needs to be distributed across the organization. Just as publishers are looking at agile software development for cues to new ways of publishing, we need to be thinking about agile metadata development. That like any good hive mind, each function inside a publishing house bears equal responsibility and equal expertise for a very large, very complex undertaking. In turning metadata into a thing, a project, a function, something isolated, publishers risk marginalizing it and not paying attention to it. It's the metadata manager's job after all. So whatever our individual job is, our ultimate goal, the reason why we got into this line of work in the first place, is to get as many books into the hands of as many readers as we possibly can. That is why we're all here. That's what each of us do in our own way every day. Metadata, communication about books, gives us the ability to get as close to that goal as we have ever been in the history of publishing. Filling out those fields in a database seems like an extra step, yet more work being piled upon us, and God knows it's about as thrilling as watching paint dry. But doing that work is what will ensure that we can do what we came into this business to do, which is to get a book into the hands of everyone who wants one. Thank you very much.